You're probably wondering how the hell I spent $187,000 on my production company. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly where that money went and why it went to those places, and give you some tips on what you can expect when you're growing your own production company too. So the first section that makes up that big number is our cost of sales. What did it actually cost us to get the goods sold in the first place? So in this section, we start to look at things like subcontractor costs, and we also looked into the cost of goods sold. Now for us, last year we spent $10,000 on subcontractors and $5,000 of costs of goods sold. Now, cost of goods sold is easier to explain if you had a product. How much does it actually cost you to buy that product? What are you selling it for? That's the cost of the goods sold. So for us, that might be certain things we buy in for our production clients as part of that production, and that's a cost of selling that good as well. They can get to keep it at the end. So the exact total for that category was $14,767, which makes up about 8% of our overall spend for last year. And that's pretty good, to be fair. Outsourcing to subcontractors can be a huge part of any business's growth. And actually for us, we didn't use them that much because we started to expand our team even more. Now, before we dive into the next section, which costs us over $150,000, I want to explain what good actually looks like and what you should be aiming for inside your own production companies. As a general rule of thumb, and this is very generalized, if you can have a business that operates on a third, then you've got a very lean business model. So that is, a third of your costs are down to your staff and wages or subcontractors. A third of your costs are administrative and production related and all the rest of it. And then a third is left for profit. Then you've got a pretty good business. But of course, over time that fluctuates loads. And if you're in a growth mindset or a growth stage of your business, then your profits and your profit margins are going to be shrunk down massively because you're going to be investing more of the money that you're making back into your business. And that's really important to know, because sometimes people can get a bit ahead of themselves. They make a bit of money. They think they're doing all right by themselves, but then they instantly cap their growth because it's just them in their business, or maybe them and one other person. In order to keep growing and generate lots of income and create a sustainable business, you really want to be working on investing in those early days back into your business. And I'm not talking about just buying the latest cameras, but investing in great staff as well. Great staff, great locations, good marketing strategies, all of those things that go into creating a proper production company. And that will have an impact on those figures, but then after time, you can start work towards those third splits. With the exception of around about 5 or 6 line items, most things that make up our next section only amount to maybe less than 1% of our total expenditure for last year. And this always blows my mind, because you end up with a huge figure at the bottom, but generally speaking, it's made up of loads of categories that are just generating very small amounts of costs to your business. But that's what happens. It just all amounts over time. And this category comes under administrative costs. This is everything to actually run your business. And this makes up 80% of our costs throughout the year. This includes things like advertising and marketing, corporation taxes, rent, the cost of heating and electricity, salaries, IT expenses, legal expenses, interest, general insurances, all of the kind of boring things and the things that you don't actually have that are tangible at the end of the day, because production equipment and computer equipment still doesn't come into this. But this is more like the actual run-ins of the business, and that's why it makes up so much. And I'm going to just pick out a few here that really made a huge dent into our 150 grand spend for this category. Now, the obvious one is wages. Of course, wages are going to take up a huge chunk of this category, but ones that aren't so obvious are things like travel. Travel for both international and national use actually amounted to around about £10,000, which is around about 5-6% of our overall cost of sales for that time. So that's a huge chunk. That's a chunk of money that we're having to pay either subcontractors or our internal staff to go on shoots themselves. Now, of course, we can add this to the invoice, and there's always kind of an area around this. We try to charge for travel where possible, but sometimes the client says, hey, the project's $5,000 or £5,000. that's what it is. Can you do it within that? And that's where you might have to waiver some of those costs. But towards the end of the year, they really do add up to be a massive amount. We've got studio rental on its own making up 8% of our outgoings. And along with that, we've also got another $2,000 worth of repairs and maintenance to the building to keep it going and keep it looking the way it does, and again just maintaining that. So that's a huge thing for us. We have a rental agreement here with our landlord and for a set period of time, and that's something that's really good, especially, you know, this is our first studio, so we were kind of unsure of how it would change the dynamic within our business, and it changed it massively for the positive. So we'll be looking to hopefully extend that for a lot of other years, or find a new bigger location where we can move our studio into as well. That's something that for people who are starting out, there's 2 tips I give them. If you're starting out as a one-man band looking to grow into a proper production company, first person you want to employ is a filmer editor. Second thing you want to start to think about is maybe having an office space and actually finding a dedicated working space, whether that's a converted garage like I used to work out of, or whether that's some shared office space or something like that. It just really makes it start to feel like more of a business, and you can invite clients over to have more meaningful business discussions rather than inviting them over to your bedroom. Now, last year we spent 2%, so around about $5,000 on advertising and marketing. And that's something for this year that we want to change massively. We're going to start to really up that even more and invest even more money into that side of the business so that we can get noticed by potential clients and actually make our inbound leads a lot easier, making more sales at the end of the day. But of course, I don't think our expenditure over 2023 is going to be much less than what it was last year as well. Before I move into the final section, which cost us $23,000, I wanted to provide you some real value here. No matter at what stage of your journey you're at the moment, it takes some time to really understand your numbers and understand the costs to your business. People always focus on the big numbers, you know, your revenue, how much sales did you drive, and sometimes forget to really take a delicate look at what the costs were and what's costing you the most, and can you refine any of those and bring those down a bit. And if you look at the figures that you can for me and think, no, we can't really, we did everything well, then that's a good position to be in. But there's a lot of factors that freelancers particularly overlook. What's the cost of your heating or your electricity? Perhaps you're at home and you don't have to worry about things, but that is going to cost you at some point. And when you move into an office, there are costs that you're going to have to quickly up your day rates and up your rates to your clients to cover those things. Otherwise, you're making a lot less money. You're going to have to think about your internet. How much does that cost per month? How much do your subscriptions cost for all of your platforms? You know, if you're using Adobe or DaVinci or Storyblocks or Epidemic Sound or whatever it is, those things do have a cost. And at the end of it, they're all taken away from your profit margin. So you need to think, how is that factored into either your day rate by charging more, or how do you factor that into your cost sheet? But if you don't know what those costs are, sometimes you'll think you're making money, but you look at your bank account and it's just not growing how you want it to. So this is really important to do. Now, we've never done this before on this channel, but I've got a competition for you. I want you guys to let me know in the comments how much you think we're gonna spend this current year, and I'll get the figures for that in the start of 2024. Let me know in the comments below, and the closest person to the right amount will win a prize. I'll get something sorted out and we'll get in contact with you. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Throw in some numbers, have a guess, and I'd love to hear what your predictions are. So the final category that makes up the $23,000 worth of spend, and the remaining 12% of our total spend for the year, is our tangible assets. So these are actual assets that we buy for the business. So production equipment, computer equipment, office equipment that become tangible that the business owns. And a great way to actually describe this is over here in the UK, if you went into debt or, you know, those kind of things, and they sent the bailiffs around, they're the kind of tangible assets that they would take to then resell. That's a very dark way of looking at it, but it's a pretty simplistic way. They're kind of things that you have. This microphone is a tangible asset. It's a £400 microphone. This camera is a tangible asset, and everything behind me and all the rest of it. So they're the kind of things we look at in this category. And some of you are probably thinking,
but Ross, you just spent $150,000 in the last section, and that didn't include production gear.
No, it didn't. And this is why I kind of say to people as well, you know, you can very easily spend 180 odd grand on production equipment, but you need to have the clients paying for that. You need to understand your clients well enough to know, is that what they need? If I go and drop that on a brand new Red or an Arri, are they really gonna change a lot. You know, I'm going to have to completely change my business to fit that type of customer. And that's a journey that you have to go on. So how do we break down this money? Well, we had computer equipment came to just under $7,000, so making up around about 4% of our overall expenditure. Computer equipment, that was invested in a couple new computers. That's hard drives, obviously hard drives galore, servers and things like that. That doesn't include computer software. That came into the previous category of administrative costs. But yeah, computer equipment, all those tangible assets, brand new Macs, and computers, hard drives, they're really the main things that make that up. Office equipment was only 0.18%, which was super small. Basically covers some office chairs, some office stationery, makes up $330, not very much, which is perfect. So the remaining $15,000 or just over $15,000 was spent on production equipment. That made up 8% of our overall expenditure for the year, which was quite a huge chunk. And even though $15,000 isn't a lot when it comes to production gear, that really just covered the investment into a few new items such as new lenses. This also covers, you know, obviously when you break lenses or break production equipment, have to buy more. We've also got microphone packs that we're forever breaking and changing and replacing as well. That also covers new lighting equipment, tripods, C-stands, all of those things. They just add up over time. And I'm sure you're probably thinking, well, Ross, I can spend 15 grand pretty quickly. You can. Don't forget, you've got all of those other costs though, and you have to make sure that you've got the right clients first. So get the best clients first, then get the best camera equipment and all of the fun stuff when you know you've got that money coming in. So now you know how we've spent over $180,000 on our production company. Wouldn't you like to know how to make at least $100,000 for your production company? If that's the case, then click on this video right here. There's 7 really easy ways to make 100 grand for your production company. Lots of tips, tricks, and strategies in that video. So go check that out. And if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to have a guess at how much we're going to spend next year.